Pyknon. Pyknon from, sometimes also transliterated as Pyknon from close, close-packed, crowded, condensed, in the music theory of Antiquity is a structural property of any tetrachord in which a composite of two smaller intervals is less than the remaining incomposite interval. The makeup of the Pyknon serves to identify the melodic genus, also called genus of a tetrachord, and the octave species made by compounding two such tetrachords, and the rules governing the ways in which such compounds may be made center on the relationships of the two pykna involved. Definition. The pyknon was an important criterion in the classification of melodic genera. The Greek word pi(kappa)nu is an adjective meaning close, compact, close-packed, or crowded. In ancient Greek music theory, this term is used to describe a pair of intervals within a tetrachord, the sum of which is less than the remainder of the tetrachord. Although, in modern usage, a tetrachord may be any four-note segment of a scale, or indeed any unordered collection of four pitch classes, in ancient Greek music theory a tetrachord consists of a four-note segment of the greater and lesser perfect systems bounded by the interval of a perfect fourth, the outer notes of which remain fixed in all genera and therefore are called standing notes. The positions of the inner notes vary from one genus to another, for which reason they are called movable notes. In its basic theoretical form, the largest interval of a tetrachord is at the top and the smallest at the bottom. The existence of a pyknon therefore depends on the uppermost interval being larger than half of a perfect fourth, which occurs only in the chromatic and enharmonic genera. Because the diatonic genus consists of two whole tones and one semitone, no single interval is larger than the other two combined, and so there is no pyknon. For this reason, the enharmonic and chromatic genera are sometimes called the pycnic genera in order to distinguish them from the diatonic. Theoretical applications. The notes of the central tetrachord of the system in ascending order are hypate, parhypate, litchanos or hypermes, and these. A second tetrachord is added above, after a disjunctive tone, and the corresponding names together with the interval ratios of the standing tones are mes 4, 3 neat 2, 1 standing litchanos neat movable parhypate trite movable hypate 1 parames 3, 2 standing. Although movable, the litchanos must remain above the parhypate and the paraneat above the trit. A composite interval is one made up of two or more smaller intervals. An incomposite interval has no smaller components in these terms. If the composite interval between the hypate and the litchanos or parames and paraneat is smaller than the incomposite interval from the litchanos to the mes or paraneat to neat, the three notes in that composite interval are together called a pyknon. In the diatonic genus, because the composite interval from hypate to litchanos a minor third is larger than the remaining incomposite interval from litchanos to mes a whole tone, the lowest three notes of the diatonic tetrachord are designated a pyknon, not close-packed. Enharmonic. In the enharmonic genus, the large incomposite interval was originally a ditto in the major third of Pythagorean tuning, leaving a pyknon with a total width of just a semitone. The Pythagorean ditton is equivalent to 2/9, 8 doa, or major seconds, together an interval of 81/64, thus leaving a pyknon of 256/243, a lemma minor Pythagorean semitone, but how the pyknon was exactly, that is by exact mathematic calculation divided into its two component intervals, is not known. The tuning of Eratosthenes, as reported by Aristophanes, uses a major third of 19/15 with the two unequal intervals of the pyknon in the ratios of 40/39 and 39/30. Although Aristophanes also implies that the two intervals of the pyknon in the enharmonic genus may be equal, the anonymous author of the Euclidean sectio Canonis Paetin is unequivocal. The Parhypate and Trita do not divide the pyknon into equal intervals. Ptolemy reports in his Harmonics 2:14 that two other theorists, Archytas and Didymus, replaced the dittum with a smaller, just major third with the number ratio of 5/4, making the pyknon correspondingly larger. This pyknon was divided differently by these two theorists, but in both cases the two intervals were not equal to one another. Archytas, who was the first theorist to give ratios for all of the genera, chose 28, 27, and 36/35, and Didymus, some 4 centuries later, gave 32, 31, and 31/30. Chromatic. In the chromatic genus, the largest interval was called a, translated as incomposite, or non-composites. Trihemitone Bauer, Hegel, Levin, and Barker prefer a descriptive translation, an undivided interval of 3 semitones. Strong uses trisemitone, the modern term being minor third, leaving a pyknon of some type of whole tone to be divided into 2 semitones. There is a larger number of variations in the tuning of the chromatic than in the enharmonic. Up to the beginning of the 4th century BC, the chromatic pyknon spanned a major whole tone with a 9:8 ratio, and this was divided by Gaudentius into ascending semitone intervals of 256, 243, and 2187, 2048. Ptolemy defined 2 different tunings of the chromatic genus, the soft chromatic with a smaller pyknon and the intense chromatic with a larger one. The unequal semitones dividing the pykna were in ratios of 28, 27, and 15:14 for the soft chromatic, and 22, 21, and 12:11 for the intense. The larger remaining interval was 6, 5 in the soft chromatic, and 7, 6 in the intense. Scale structure. A further refinement of tetrachordal construction, according to Aristoxenus, is that the lower interval of the pyknon must be smaller than or equal to the upper one. Didymus in the chromatic genus and Otschitis in the enharmonic broke this rule, however, and in the harmonics too. 13 Ptolemy criticized this feature in Didymus, holding that it is a melodic and out of agreement with the evidence of our ears. According to Aristoxenus, Elementa Harmonica elements of harmony, Book 2, whenever tetrachords are combined to form a scale filling an octave, 2 consecutive pykna may not occur in ascent or descent. A ditto may precede or follow in ascent or descent. A tone may follow only in descent.